today we will start with Cicero. He is a Roman orator, a Roman statesman, and a philosopher. And in the realm of things, what we usually do is, or what usually happens in popular discussion of political philosophy, is that many tend to disregard or kind of gloss over the political philosophy and the thoughts of Cicero. Now the thing is this: it's very essential that we pay a huge and a due importance to Cicero for so many reasons, which we'll discuss as the lecture goes on. However, I think one thing that I can say is that you get a good and a better appreciation of the ideas before him. For instance, it is only true when you. The thing is, Cicero had a good grasp of the philosophies of the ancient Greeks, be it Socrates or Aristotle or Plato, and most of the ideas which he holds do tend to correlate and do tend similar. It tends to be similar with the ideas, most similar with in terms of political philosophy. His ideas align quite well with Aristotle, and in terms of his moral philosophy, which as we discuss Aristotle, in terms of moral philosophy, which is essential in order to understand the aims and the end of politics, he's more aligned with the ideas of, say for instance, Socrates, not Plato but Socrates, and we will get those you'll get it why I'm saying all those things. But it is essential that you keep these things in mind, so that our conversation, our lectures become smooth. And also because it is essential to remember that we are all, more or less, all great thinkers are in one way or the other, influenced by the thinkers prior to him or her, whoever that is. So you see that, and it is kind of unfair to kind of reduce Cicero to a simple how do I put this, simple label that he only transmitted the ideas of the ancient Greek philosophers to the Hellenic world, right, to the Roman world. But I think that's kind of unfair, and those who say that have a very little understanding of Cicero. So those are the things which I want you to keep this in mind before we start with his lecture. And I would say that he is the last of the he's the last of the classical in a sense, before we enter the medieval period. So he's the last of the classical political philosophers, if you want to put that. Yeah, but you can also put, for instance, the great, again, another Roman emperor, Marcus Aurelius. I mean, he is also a good, from my understanding, he also has some good ideas and good, things to say about political realm and the human realm. But I suppose in a academic sense, or more in orthodox sense, one can claim that Cicero is the last of the political thinkers who belongs to the classical age, right? So it's very interesting, and the reason why I'm going on and on about this context is because I have to give you the context. You must know the context of the different thinkers and philosophers, otherwise it becomes meaningless. I mean, without the context, you can't make sense. And remember that we live in a social world, right? We live in a world, where we make our experiences, we make meanings from the context, from the circumstances in which we are born into, right? So those things matter, and without those things, without understanding the context, it becomes very difficult to even understand or even appreciate the kinds of ideas that are being propounded by specific thinkers of a specific period from a specific period that belongs to a specific age, that belongs to a specific culture. But I think this is where the humanity, the universality of the humanity shows that, regardless of the varieties of culture one belongs to, or the difference in culture, or time and place and age and period, I feel, and it is my belief, that human culture has this. When we speak of the human condition, the universality of the humanity shows, and it keeps popping up every now and then. And you see that if you read Socrates and Plato and Aristotle, and yes, and even Cicero. And later on we'll even discuss St. Augustine and Thomas Aquinas, and those universality of humanity keeps popping up, right? But that's for later discussion. But for now, that's the context, right? But I think I must let you in on a secret, right? It's very essential that you know this. Not because, of course, it's valuable, so I think it's best that you know it. You see, once I've read Cicero quite a few times, and the more I read him, the more I tend to appreciate him. And the more I read him, the more I kind of appreciate the idea, better understand the ideas of the ancient Greek philosophers, because it is out of my reading of Cicero that I've got a better idea and better understanding of the ideas behind political philosophy of Aristotle and Plato and Socrates. And I think hopefully as we go through this lecture, you will see that and gain some appreciation. All right, so that's what it is. But let me give you a very brief intro, I suppose. You see, the thing is this: when it is essential that you to know that Cicero wasn't eclectic, right? He did not belong to one particular school of thought. He was not a dogmatist, right? He did not adhere to a certain dogmas, certain philosophical dogmas. So he entertained, or he would examine all the existing school of thoughts, and then from there he would try to collect the best, right? That's what made him eclectic, and that's the ingenuity and the creativity, and hence the ideas which he propounds. Those are very, very essential that you know that you know these things. Thus you gain a better appreciation of Cicero. Most of the works of Cicero, most people when they study Cicero, they tend to limit themselves to his Republic, i.e. also known as the Commonwealth, and the Law. But for our lecture, I will not do that. We will not dwell in his the works of political philosophy. Of course, you may say, "Oh, how can you do that? This is classical political philosophy, and how can you, ignore Cicero's political work?" Well, there's a reason. You see, we can't be stupid and follow the trend. You see, there's a reason why I'm doing this. The thing is this: almost everyone knows have read, or at least superficially have a superficial understanding about Cicero's Law and Cicero's Republic, also known as the Commonwealth. However, it is very difficult to gain an appreciation of what he's saying in the Law and in the Republic, also known as the Commonwealth, without understanding the moral basis on which he claims what he is claiming. All the sort of say, for instance, all the sort of regime that he is in favor of, right? To say the best kind of regime is this and that, whatever the regime may be. Obviously the answer is the mixed regime. Cicero propounds and proposes, and he advocates for the mixed regime. But then you don't understand, you will not get an appreciation as to why he is saying why he prefers the mixed regime, right, as the best and the ideal regime, if you don't have a contextual understanding of the moral basis as to why he's saying such a thing. It is essential that you know it. It is only true when you have that, when you understand his moral basis of his political ideas, that you appreciate what he's saying. Not only that, but also, more importantly, you see you kind of see the continuation of the purpose of politics, right? Because there's an end to politics, and this was clearly propounded by Aristotle. And you see it clearly, you see the continuation of that aim, right? No matter the change in time and place and period and the thinkers and the regime and the empire, the aim is still the same. That is the universal appeal of politics as to why every human society is involved in some sort of politics, right? That's because there is a certain aim. That aim, no matter where you are, no matter which period you belong to, no matter which culture you belong to, regardless of the culture, regardless of the space and time, regardless of the age, the end of politics, the aim of politics, the ultimate purpose of politics is the same. And thus, Cicero, whatever he says, you can appreciate what he is saying once you understand the moral basis or the moral foundation as to why he prefers a mixed regime over any other, and why for him the mixed regime is the best, the ideal, the best regime that you can, the best actual regime that is actually possible here on earth, anywhere on earth, right? So for that purpose, we will be looking into his book called On Moral Duties. In English it's called The Moral Duties, or is also known as Cicero's The Officiis, right? The Officiis, also known as The Moral Duties or On Duties. Alright, so that's the work we're going to look at. Especially we're going to emphasize our ideas for this lecture. We'll be looking more particularly into book 3 of the Officiis, On Moral Duties. Okay, so we are not neglecting, we're not saying that Cicero's work on political philosophy, such as the Republic, i.e. the Commonwealth, and the law are not important. I'm not saying that they are important. However, what is most important is that you can only appreciate and you can understand better what he's saying if you understand the moral basis of his thoughts. Moreover, the reason why I'm skipping, I can say that the reason why I'm not, for this lecture, we're not dwelling on Cicero's The Law and the Republic, is precisely because what he says in his ideal regime, the best regime that Cicero proposes is the mixed regime. And the mixed regime we get through, it is very similar to Aristotle's mixed polity, right? The mixed constitution, the mixed polity. However, even though it looks similar, Cicero got this idea of mixed regime from a Greek historian, Polybius, right? So it is from him. So literally you see the Greek connection, right? The ancient Greek. So literally you see that. So you see the strain of influences from Aristotle to Polybius to Cicero. And obviously, Polybius, being a Greek historian, had a pretty good idea about what Aristotle would have said and what kind of regime he would have preferred. And of course, we know that Cicero was a well-learned person of his age, and he was very well aware of the works of Aristotle and Socrates and Plato, and also of the other Greek thinkers. So it is good. It's quite safe to assume that he knew. I'm sure he knew a lot about the schools that were in Greece, such as the Lyceum, the academic, right, the Stoa or the Stoic, Epicureans. So there we go. So he was quite a well-learned person, and then he knew what exactly he was propounding. And so that's another reason as to why we are not looking into Cicero's Republic, because what he propounds, what he supports, what he advocates as the base regime, which is the mixed regime, is similar to what Aristotle propounds in his Politics. So that's one reason why I'm trying to skip over it. And I think in most cases, whenever we speak of political philosophy, what we tend to do is that we tend to be quite literal, which is kind of, stupefying, and if not moronic. Why? Because you see, nowadays we're living in a very how do I put it? We're living in a very literal world, right? We don't see the metaphor. We don't like to read between the lines. We don't I suppose we are incapable of that. We are becoming more and more incapable of reading between the lines, or becoming more and more incapable of understanding the metaphors behind the writings of these great ancient thinkers. And that's one thing which I have generally noticed in maybe that's the spirit of the age. Maybe the spirit of the age, the Zeitgeist, right? As the Germans would say, the Zeitgeist, or the spirit of the age, is that we have become a very literal people. The modern people, the modern societies, are more literal people. I think we have lost a sense of mysticism, or we have lost a sense of myth. We have lost a sense of the sublime. I think that's why I think we have become very, very literal, and it's a wrong step. Right? It's a wrong idea. It's a very wrong step for us to approach these great thinkers such as Cicero or Aristotle or Plato or Socrates from a literal sense. Maybe when we do speak of Augustine, and maybe when we do speak of Thomas Aquinas, and from then on, beginning from Augustine, Thomas Aquinas, Machiavelli, Hobbes, whatnot, we can take things literally. But then, with regards to these thinkers, these great thinkers, I think it is a wrong step for us to approach such thinkers from a literal sense. And if we do approach from a literal sense, we will not understand them. We will not understand them. That's the issue. And I hope that the viewers or listeners are well aware of this fact. Okay, so those are the quick housekeeping, not housekeeping rules, but then quick digression before we start with Cicero's lecture. And what are the other things which I want to get into before we jumpstart this? So what we're going to do is that we will just have a very quick intro, and in the next lecture we'll go more and more deeper into these things. And it is quite essential and very interesting for us to for us to also, like I was saying, we've become a very literal person. And the reason why I said it was because when we speak of politics, we tend to be very, very literal, and hence we say, okay, because this lecture is about classical political philosophy, and hence why are we talking about Cicero's work on morals, on moral duty, the Officiis, right? And of course you may have also, if you have watched my video lecture on Aristotle, you would have said the same thing. Why did I focus mostly on the moral basis of politics rather than the actual basis? But there are reasons as to why, and the reasons are the same. You see, it is very essential for us to understand that that politics, and this is from my understanding and from my readings of the great thinkers, of great ancient Greek thinkers, and it is a shame that even the Western societies have tend to misunderstand even these great Western philosophers, and that's a shame. They literally, the Western society is now beginning to become very, very literal. They're literally understanding these great philosophers, which is wrong. So, okay, nevertheless, coming back to the issue, you must understand that politics cannot be separated from ethics, or you can say from morality, from the questions of morality. You see, because as the ancient Greek thinkers have proposed or have viewed, and rightly so, that the ultimate aim, the end of politics, is something close to living well, right? To ensure that people in your society are living well, happiness. That's what Aristotle would say, right? And by that happiness, we mean to prosper and to thrive, right? To be healthy, to be vigorous, right? To be virile. So all these things makes a society strong, and it makes society happy. It's not just about material things, which is not very essential. So those things. So in order to truly achieve the end of politics, because of the fact that the end of politics is only possible when we take the moral foundations, only when we take the moral factors into consideration. In other words, like we discussed in Aristotle's Ethics or Aristotle's Politics. In order to attain the aim of politics, the individual had to be ethical or virtuous in a sense, to show excellence in all that he or she is. And if a person, or if, say for instance, the political leaders are not virtuous in that sense, then you can't really expect the end of politics to be fulfilled, and rightly so. And for instance, if you look at the way I can say very little of the, because I'm not from America or from the United States, America or from Western Europe or Australia and New Zealand, I cannot say much. However, with regards to India, and because I live here, and because if you want to go even more, specific, here in the state of Nagaland in India, if you look at the end of if you look at the politics the way it is, you can hardly say that politics has an end, because it seems like the reality is that politics seems to be more or less like attaining power and maintaining power, and and then distributing the wealth of the state, the resources of the state, according to your own wishes, right? So you could never say that there's an aim. People living in Nagaland, if you ask the people in India and people in Nagaland, is there a purpose to politics? I'm very confident that not many people will say yes. Most people will say, I don't think there's a purpose to politics, because the reality is the way politics is carried out and is done seems to be as though there is no aim to politics. The aim to politics would seem selfish, right? Most people would rightly, looking at the way the politics is practiced, would say that there is no purpose to politics, and rightly so. And who can blame them? Look at the reality, right? So that's the issue. So, and the reason why people tend to be disillusioned with politics is because we have removed, for some reason, be it in practice or be it in our contemplation of politics or in political studies, is that we have removed the morality from politics. And this is mainly to do with the rise of scientific methods in political science, in political studies. The whole world is becoming more empirical, right? Trying to be more scientific, and because we're trying to be more scientific, we most unfortunately disregard the moral foundation of the human studies. And then, because politics is about human beings, about human societies, and humans are by nature moral beings, rightly or wrongly, when we do remove that morality, the moral factor, everything becomes meaningless. And I think that's the reason why I think we have lost the sense of honest, and we have also lost the sense of the meaning, the end, and the ultimate purpose of politics, because we have removed morality from politics. Again, I think we can start blaming that from Machiavelli, starting from Machiavelli, Hobbes, Locke. Look at them. For them, there's no room for morality in politics. And if our modern understanding of politics largely falls on them, then I think we have rightly in the wrong way, in the wrong sense, think that politics is that there's no room for morality in politics. So yeah, so those are the things, and that's why I think it is essential for us to dwell into the Officiis of Cicero, because we have a better appreciation of what politics is. We also have a better not just understanding, but see the complexities involved in truly attaining the aim of politics. Because ultimately we will find, and we have seen this from Aristotle and from Socrates and from Plato, and we will also see this from Cicero, is that ultimately the responsibility of attaining the aim of politics ultimately falls upon the person, upon the individual person, you and I as an individual person. And it is when you and I as an individual person build our character, our moral character, try to become more virtuous, then does it become attainable, right? Attainable and plausible for us to achieve the aim of politics, whatever the aim of politics may be. Otherwise, if you and I are not virtuous, if we don't try to cultivate the nobler character of ourselves, then politics is deprived of its very essence, and thus politics forever remains selfish. Politics forever remains fight over resources, as you can see that in Africa, in Latin America, in Asia, and now who knows, you may even see it in Europe and America, right? So those are the things that we should keep in mind. Okay, so this is where we'll end for today. The next lecture video, so in the next lecture video, we will start with Cicero more in detail, right? We'll start more in detail about Cicero's. I'll give a very brief background on the context of his the Officiis, right? And then in the following lectures we'll start with the Officiis. Alright? Okay, so have a nice day, have a nice evening, blah blah blah, and I'll see you guys very soon. Take care.